Mein Name ist Laura Dekker. Ich habe die Welt umsegelt. Als jüngster Mensch allein auf einem Boot.
A 13-year-old Dutch girl wants to sail the world alone.
Aber war ich wirklich allein? Nein, niemals. Mein Vater war immer dabei, von Anfang an. Dass er mich das hat machen lassen. Dass er mir das möglich gemacht hat, an mich geglaubt hat. Schon Wahnsinn.
Well, I'm quite happy about this.
Und während der Reise hat er mich dann vom Land aus unterstützt, hat Ersatzteile besorgt und das Wetter gecheckt.
This is truly incredible. We've got 75 mile-per-hour winds.
Er war immer da, wenn es hart wurde. Und ich die Hoffnung schon fast aufgeben wollte. Das war sein positiver Beitrag. Ohne ihn hätte ich es nie geschafft. Du brauchst immer einen, der dich ans Ziel bringt.
Bitte einen donnernden Applaus für Laura Dekker und Maria Exner, stellvertretende Chefredakteurin von Zeit Online.
Hallo, herzlich willkommen zu dieser Session mit Laura Dekker. Ich werde mich ab und zu räuspern müssen. Und genau, wie wir gerade in dem Film schon gesehen haben, geht es jetzt ein bisschen um frischen Wind im Kopf. Und wir wechseln die Sprache. Laura spricht super Deutsch, aber wir haben uns trotzdem darauf geeinigt, Englisch zu sprechen. And Mark just said that you're somebody who is able to make decisions really fast and have the right decisions. And you definitely took the right decision to bring a warm sweater to the Paulskirche today. So it's my pleasure to share the stage with you. Laura is 23 now. Your big adventure is now 7 years behind you. And you are a captain. You have a captain's license. You are a boat electrician, or you're on the way to become one. Yes. You're studying, but you're also studying pedagogy, or like how to deal and how to educate young people at the moment. Yes. And of course, you're the youngest person ever to have sailed around the world, and it took 518 days.
Yeah, so from the Caribbean to the Caribbean was 1 year and 1 day, but I started in Europe and ended up in New Zealand, so yeah, kind of 1.5 times.
Yeah, like one time around wasn't enough.
No.
But you could only set off to do this trip, and we will talk about that a little, after a really quite fierce legal battle between your parents and the Dutch authorities. And at this point that we are talking today, you are having, you've just set out for your next big project, which is an educational project.
Yep.
And just to what Mark said in his introduction, it's going to be about educating young people with skills that they might not be able to find within the smartphone.
Exactly, real life skills, because I believe we're very theoretical and we learn all that stuff in school and it's great, but then I see kids 16, 17, 18 that are done with school and then they've got all this knowledge, but they don't really know how to use it. And I on the boat learned really a lot of skills, like fighting through hard times and getting to know yourself, to really of course, with us on the boat, they will also learn to really become a good team, to communicate well, to do everything themselves. I think also just to trust yourself and get that determination to actually go and do something. So yeah, that's those kind of life skills I want to bring over.
Now, maybe to get a better sense of what make you the person that you are and somebody who was able to do this incredible journey, it seems that you're doing a lot of things at a time when other people don't do these things, like sail around the world when you're 14-year-old. You've just have your own foundation now when you're 23. Is there something genuinely boring that you're doing, which is very much what 23-year-old people do normally?
No. No, I guess not. No, not really.
No, so
no, I'm busy the whole day jumping around during trying to do everything at the same time.
But you said at the moment it's the first time in your life that you don't live on a boat, but on in a
But see, that for me
real
that's
house.
not normal. Yeah, and I am definitely not planning on living in the house for very long. It's just necessary
You don't
evil
like
for
it.
the moment. Yeah, I don't like it.
What is especially bad about living in a house?
It doesn't move right. It's just all square, and I don't know. I love with the boat the freedom kind of that you have on it, and also well, Guppy was she was mine. You know, I knew every little corner, every bolt, every screw, and I could fix everything. And in a house, it doesn't really feel like that. You know, if something doesn't work, then it's different. It's not really yours.
And what are situations that you face at the moment with the project that you're doing, or maybe in your daily life, where having sailed around the world alone does not help?
I'm having to deal a lot, of course, like with paperwork and business strategies and all that and the foundation. Those are things that when I sailed around, I didn't have to deal with. So there's definitely a lot of new things that I need to learn, but that's right.
So your story begins in 1995 when you were born, already very close to the sea in a close to the sea part of New Zealand, and your parents at that time were themselves sailing or traveling around the world for 7 years. You were born to a Dutch father who was a boat builder and a German mother who was a circus artist at that time.
Yes.
And what is your earliest childhood memory? Maybe when you go back to what you can.
So, well, I was about 5 when we got back to Holland, so I don't really actually remember a lot from the trip. But of course, I've seen all the pictures and heard the stories, so that I do have memories from living on that boat still. But we were back in Holland already.
And in Holland, you lived on a houseboat with your together with your father. Quickly after you.
It's not really a houseboat.
No, oh no.
it's a real ship, seaworthy. Yeah.
So it was already a sailing.
Well, he started building it when I was 6. So it was first upside down, and we were living next to it in a caravan, and then it was right side up on the yard, and then it was in the water, and it's kind of slowly evolved. But now it's got masts and everything. Yeah. And
was it regarded as something cool among the kids you went to school with to live on, maybe a half-ready boat?
Yeah, yes and no. I think most people kind of thought I was really strange. But also kind of cool because, of course, I had this huge playground with water and boats and on the shipyard, and I had lots of freedom and to learn and build stuff.
Because that was the part of your life that you liked more than the schooling part, right?
Absolutely. Actually, when I was younger, I loved school because I love learning new things, whatever it is. But then I went into high school and I found it wasn't really about learning anymore. All the kids were just kind of being annoying, and the teacher was spending most of the time sending people out of class or trying to get them to be quiet. And then I really thought, well, I'm just wasting my time here. I'm just sitting here and I want to learn, but half of the day I am not learning, and then there's all these breaks and I can't learn at my own pace. So up until high school, I loved school, and after that I thought, well, I'm just kind of wasting my time. So that's why I chose to sail around when I did and do the schooling on the boat, which worked much better.
So it's still also, if it's already 10 years ago now, but still it's a very unusual idea for, or at least, we generally think that for a 10-year-old girl to think, I'm going to sail around the world alone. Do you still know how this kind of plan formed in your mind? How did that take kind of shape?
Well, it grew really slowly, as probably all ideas and plans do. It comes first with an idea, hey, that's interesting, and you start working it out. So kind of the first time it occurred to me, I was around 8, that I thought, one day I really want to do that. And then I started reading about it and learning more and getting a boat and working. So then, just kind of evolved slowly, that it became more concrete and where I want to go and how I want to do it. I still didn't know when I was going to do it because I just decided I'm going to go when I'm ready. And that just happened to be when I was 13.
So you were ready when you were 13, and that was mainly also through your father's encouragement. And then that's something that I think still strikes everybody who hears your story. Is like, why the hell did her father not say no? You can't sail around the world alone because it's too dangerous. Why?
There's a lot of whys, I think. First of all, he knew I had this idea since I was 8, and he saw me working for it every day. I was sailing every day or learning at night. I was, doing everything. I was working in the weekends to earn the money for my boat. And so he saw, I think, the passion, the determination I had to really do this. So one of the things he told me later was, well, I could have said no, but you would have done it anyway. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So he figured he better prepare me and do it with me so it's as safe as possible rather than then saying no and I would just go. Another thing is that for him, the sailing part was not really a problem. He knew I could sail and I could handle those situations. It was more being on land, and because I really wanted to see the world, so I stopped a lot. And he was more scared about all the countries that I went to. So that's what we talked about most. And he kind of figured, well, she can bike to school or go into town here. And is it really that much different than when it's in another place? So as long as he told me to always make friends with other people and never go into town alone. We talked about it a lot, and I actually never had any trouble with it.
So he was kind of making, up a set of rules that you would have to follow while
Yeah,
you would be
he
traveling.
gave me a lot of freedom throughout my life, but there were very clear boundaries. So it was like, you can do all this stuff if you keep those rules. And I did, because I really valued the freedom that gave me, and I trusted my dad that when he said no, there was a reason for it.
But he also had a quite maybe strict or quite interesting concept of preparing you for the trip. So I read that he would, kind of make sudden pullovers with the boat you would be on, and you would fall into the water, and then he would see if you can crawl underneath the boat.
Yeah, it was. Well, that was more because I really wanted to do dinghy sailing in little boats. So he said, well, it's very important if you're alone that you don't panic. If something happens and the boat capsizes and your feet are stuck in the ropes and you're underwater, when you panic, then it's over, really. So you need to just be able to control your mind very well. So he did a lot of that with me. And during the trip, that was actually one of the more valuable lessons that he had taught me, because there's a lot of situations that, well, you really don't know what to do. And it's easy to panic and think, I don't know what to do, and you start running around and making wrong decisions. So it's very important to just say, okay, let's calm down and better wait a little bit and think about a good solution rather than breaking more stuff.
And that's maybe something that's really very different from the approach that maybe modern parents, to make this very broad generalization, have towards parenting, which, at least how we depict it in the media, is a very, kind of caring, maybe protective way of raising your kids.
Yeah. Well, I actually believe that my dad is very high on safety and very protective. And he really believed that when he would teach me all this stuff while I was still under his care, while he could still, jump in and save me, that I would learn it much better. Because when you're overprotective, then you keep your kids with you until they're 16, 17, and they haven't had the chance to do it on their own because you've always protected them. But at some stage, they're going to say, hey, I'm over it, I'm leaving. And then suddenly they're on their own. So the difference between it, the jump is so much bigger from mom and dad are doing everything and protecting me to suddenly on your own, and then a lot of stuff goes wrong. So I actually think the way my dad did it is more, he eased me into it much better.
And still there was this moment when you were ready and the boat was ready and your dad was willing to let you go. And then he took you off from school, and the head teacher of the school you were at was calling the authorities and said, he has a ridiculous plan going on.
Yeah.
We're not going to allow this. And then there was a really, I think, a year-long fight with the Dutch authorities if your parents are able to allow you to do this, or if it's something that needs to be forbidden by the state.
Yeah.
And I just thought that, or I wanted to ask you if, why was it so important that you went right now? Because, you know, with this kind of legal backlash, and there was a lot of media attention, I think it was very uncomfortable. You could have just waited until you are.
I guess in the beginning, yes. It's such a big, complicated story, but in the beginning I probably could have said, okay, you know what, I'm not going to do it, but I'm pretty stubborn and determined, and when I want to do something, I'm going to do it. So I thought, okay, they're going to check out if I can do it or not. I will prove to them that I can do it. But then it became this huge kind of, it just exploded. The media jumped on top of it, and the childcare and the government, and then it was a choice between going into a children's home or fighting through it to actually do my dream, because what they took the responsibility from my parents, and what they really wanted is to just put me out of home and put me into a children's home. So, you know, probably the first 2 months, if I would have given up, it would have been okay. But I don't give up so easily. And then after that, I didn't really have a choice. I just had to fight for it.
Looking back now that you're 23, do you understand the kind of logic behind this pushback by the authorities?
I definitely understand that when they first heard it, they said, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this. And my dad and I, we talked about it, and we said, yeah, of course they want to look into it. That's logical. But then the way they handled it, and they kept going further, and the actions they took then, I definitely don't understand. It was just not really right. In the end, the case wasn't about me or my well-being at all, because a lot of things they did were really not in my interest. So yeah, that's definitely not right how it went.
So it was more maybe a general fight about what is a person allowed to do at what age. So
yeah.
And do you have thoughts on that, if that's generally something where our societies in Europe are too strict on thinking, oh, you're 13 years old, you cannot sail around the world. Oh, you're 21, you can probably not be a really successful business person. Or, this list can continue.
I think we're generalizing it too much. We're really putting everybody into a box. But you can't really do that with people, because everybody is unique. Everybody's got their own strengths and powers. And I think it's not right to put people, oh, they're like that. And it's definitely like that with kids. They're all so different, and you need to look at them individually. And of course, that's what really not happened with me. They just said, oh, she's a girl and she's 13, so she cannot do it, without looking any further. So yeah, I really believe that in any case, you need to look at the individual person. For example, my sister, she's 3 years younger, but my parents would have never allowed her to sail around the world. Not even now, my dad is like, no, I don't think I would like her to do that, because she's a very different person. So yeah, it depends on the child, on the person.
She can do other things because she's a circus artist as well.
No, she has. She is very smart, and she's got her own skills, and she's traveling around Europe in the circus. So yeah, no, she does. She definitely does her own thing.
A colleague of mine visited you during your trip. She was then with another paper and interviewed you in Bonaire, when that was the Caribbean part of your trip after you've crossed the North Atlantic. And so that was pretty early into the trip. And you said to her, it's great to be out on the sea now and doing it, actually. And I don't think I will ever go back to Holland because, the whole process, that's been so rough, and I won't return. Now you're 23.
Yeah, never say never. But I was very convinced about that at the time.
Because how did your relationship to the country that you're now living at the moment in change then after the trip? And also, we have talked a little bit about that when we came up here, is how does Holland see Laura Dekker today?
So, well, to start with your first question, I'm mostly here because I need it for the project. It's just a better place to be, but I'd rather be living in New Zealand. It was hard for me to return because there's a lot of bad memories, and so much stuff happened that really took me years to kind of think like what really happened and how, and I had a hard time kind of processing all that. But now I've slowly started kind of forgiving those people and getting over it and realizing that there was a lot of people who were actually behind it as well. But yeah, that took a while. So it's okay now.
And now, everywhere in the world, you're famous for being the youngest person ever to have sailed around the world. And in Holland, the people do react differently when
yeah, it's very interesting when I have an interview or I'm in another country, because in Holland, really all they know is all the court cases before the trip. But then when I actually started, they just ignored it and stopped writing. So most people there, or a lot of people, don't even know that I did sail around the world, because that's not what was in the media. And I feel like the rest of the world kind of started picking it up once I started sailing. So they just remember, oh, that's that girl who sailed around the world, and not all the crap that went on before that. So yeah, they see it very different.
So they have a heroine in front of their eye, but they don't see her. Holland. What do you think about, because the project that we have shortly started to discuss is called The Call of the Ocean. And what you want to do is to bring young people on board the ship and basically share the experience that you had with more young people. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that's kind of a useful lesson, or why do you think it's useful to have a school on board of a ship?
Well, it's
in these times that we are in at the moment.
Well, like I explained a little bit before, but of course it's really after the trip that I started realizing all of the things that I actually learned on the trip. I started doing talks and I worked with some schools in New Zealand, and then I thought, why am I so different, and why can I do these things but most of my peer group cannot? And then I realized I learned that in this storm or in this particular moment. I had to deal with that and I had to learn it. And they're such useful skills, and we're really, just lacking a lot of that in the current education. Also this overprotectiveness and not really going for your own dreams. We're very much, if somebody says, oh, you should follow this path because what you want to do, it's too difficult and don't do that. Oh, okay, well, we'll just follow this because it's easier. But I don't think that's right. If you've got an idea, you should do that. And as grown-ups, often we kind of take that out of kids. It's very sad. It's because we know it's really hard, and we've gone through it, and we're kind of like, well, it doesn't work, and you should do it. But I still don't think that's right, because often kids are just so much more capable of doing stuff that we don't realize. They're actually very smart, and they've got great ideas, and when we support that, they will come out much stronger and with really good things.
And what's the, because when we, at least here in Germany, think about sailing, it's a very, kind of luxurious way to spend your holidays, maybe. And you want to specifically also target children who maybe don't come from an affluent background, like you yourself didn't come from an affluent background when you started to sail. How do you think that can work out?
Well, I've thought about it for a really long time. The project, of course, has been evolving in my head for years now. And I think I've found a way that I can do it as cheap as possible for kids, but to build the ship, which is a big part of that, to have the right size and the right materials, so we don't need a lot of maintenance, to bring the cost down all a bit. Too much to explain in detail, but we will need sponsors and lots of fundraising to start with that. But once it's running, we should be able to do it fairly cheaply.
And that's once again, kind of an adventure you get yourself into without having prior experience.
Yeah.
For example, with fundraising. How do you go about to tackle a new task? Like, what's the Laura Dekker way to get into new field?
I just do it. I always kind of figure, well, if it doesn't work, then I found a way that didn't work. I'll try something else. I'm not afraid that it doesn't work, because I find if you don't do it, then I will always think, well, what if I would have done it? Would it have worked or not? And you'll keep wondering. So there's this quote that I read somewhere at some stage. It says, "Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will." And that's really how I think about it. You have to try. You have to just find out if it works or not. And I just keep going.
And it's not that, this doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Doesn't mean that there are no kind of pushbacks in your life?
There definitely are pushbacks, but yeah, you just have to, sometimes you have to completely start over, or you find out that the track that you went in is not the right track and you need to turn around 180 degrees. But I think the most important thing is to just keep going, keep making a new plan, keep analyzing why it didn't work and how it can possibly work better. It's just, yeah.
So I think lots of people look for you as an example, or even an idol, maybe people who are younger than you, or also any age. Well, who is somebody that you look up to for inspiration, or what is maybe a personal?
Probably my dad most. Yeah, he was. I grew up with just with my dad, so we have a very close bond with each other, and he taught me so much to be able to go on this trip, and then I was able to learn things myself. But yeah, I still ask him for advice very often.
And now, when you came here, you said your partner is also a boat builder, like your father is a boat builder. So I guess there's now a boat building competition going on in the family.
A little bit, yeah. But and I have got my own ideas, and I will put them through. So yeah. So I think it's important to always listen to arguments. And before the trip, there were so many people who all had an idea what I should do and what I shouldn't do. So I thought, okay, I need to listen, but it's important to always stay yourself, to think, okay, why are they saying it? Is it valid? Is it applicable? Should I listen to it or should I ignore it? And it's kind of the same now. The boat that I'm designing is very different from the designs that are happening today. It's kind of an old design ship built with new materials, and a lot of people think it's kind of strange, and it's very purposely built for what I want to do, which most boats aren't good for. So that it's hard for people to understand, I guess, but I'm convinced.
So I thought when I kind of went through the interviews and how you're doing things, I think the Laura Dekker way seems to be to really learn things by yourself, by heart. Like as you said, you knew the boat, you were going around the world with like every piece of the boat, and now you're learning how to design the ship that you want to sail in the future just by yourself. So do you think that's something that more people should embrace? Whatever it is that you want to do, you really should know your, kind of every bolt and stuff, how things work.
Yeah, and I think, in this project there's so many aspects involved and a lot of things that I don't know. And I could say, oh, I will give that to somebody else so they can handle it, and I would love to. But to start with, I would want to do it all myself, so I actually know what I'm talking about later when other people have taken it over. It's good to know every little aspect of whatever it is you're doing.
I think you just said that there's not many days when you're not sailing on the, generally in your life, there's not many days when you're not on the boat. Do you think there will come a stage when you will want to go on another trip on your own? Because the current record for the single, sailing around the world as a single adult is 42 days. A French guy holds this record. Is that something you're interested in? Is that something that you think about doing?
Not really, actually. No, I'm not. The trip I did was also not for the records. I've never really been much of a record chaser. I just really wanted to do it. Yeah, so that's not something that's on my heart. I really want to just get the bigger boat and take kids out sailing. That's my passion. That's what I really want to do.
Yeah, and I thank you that you were here today and talked about your passion and gave us an insight into how to do that and what kind of support you had. And thank you for listening to Laura Dekker.